universe. With Shri and Narayan, we see that Satya represents the ultimate truth. Lord Satyanarayan represents the ultimate truth, the unchanging truth amidst the impermanence of the material world. When we have Satya, we see that all money or all the objects that we have, the permanence that we have, means nothing without Satya, nothing without Satyanarayan, which is why that concludes the 5 steps to the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. The Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha is a sacred story of a vow dedicated to Lord Satyanarayan, which helps us align lives with truth, faith, and righteousness. The next question many of you may have is why? Why are we here performing this puja out of all pujas that we could have done on such an auspicious day? The Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha is performed to express gratitude and to the divine and seek blessings for prosperity, peace, and spiritual growth. It is a way to dedicate our thoughts and actions and to anything the mind desires, whether it is money, health, or happiness. Today, there's an emphasis on health for such an auspicious day and for such an accomplished individual surrounded by so much love and joy. One of the main reasons that I will be performing the puja today is for gratitude and devotion. This vrat is an act of surrender and gratitude, and it reminds us to thank the Lord for His blessings, both visible and unseen, and to trust His eye, His divine planning, and His eye during times of struggle. No matter what you may be going through, the Lord is there for you. The second reason is for removing obstacles. Life is filled with challenges, and someone as accomplished as him would know that life can be filled with challenges, health issues, social conflicts, and even money issues. Performing this puja today will help to remove such obstacles and clear the path towards success and peace. Thirdly, for prosperity and happiness. By observing this vrat, devotees invite abundance and happiness into their lives. It is believed that Lord Satyanarayan fulfills the wishes of those who worship Him with faith, devotion, and a pure heart. Those are the 3 keys to having a successful puja. And lastly, for spiritual growth. This puja is not just about material gains. It also deepens our connections with the divines, helping us cultivate virtues like truth, humility, and compassion. One moment. One of the most beautiful things about this Katha is the universality of Vrat. Whether one is rich or poor, learned or unlearned, a king or a common man, anyone can perform this puja and receive its blessings. It teaches us that the Lord looks not at the wealth of the offering, but at the purity of the heart, at the character of the person doing the Vrat. This universality reminds us that devotion is the great equalizer, as it unites us all under the divine shelter of Lord Narayan. What do we gain from this puja? That may be the final question you have. In the stories of the Katha, we will hear how devotees who perform this Katha from all walks of life, whether rich, poor, king, commoner, humble woodcutters, Brahmins, or just they all experienced miraculous transformations through this Vrat. Their lives were enriched, not just materially, but spiritually, because they surrendered to Lord Satyanarayan with a pure heart. As we begin this sacred Katha, let us approach it with faith, trust in the divine Lord Satyanarayan and the blessing He bestows, sincerity. Perform the ritual with a pure heart and without expectations. Gratitude. Recognize the blessings already present in your life and offer thanks to them. Now, finally, what do we need to perform this puja? Or, for example, what do we need to perform this vrat? The primary ingredients that we did up there were bhog, fruits, flowers, sweets, and most of all, again, a pure heart and devotion. The bhog is known as panchamrit, which after being offered to the gods, becomes charanamrit. The ingredients of panchamrit are milk, honey, sugar, yogurt, and ghee, which is most commonly paired with churma, or also known as wheat flour. And in particular, bananas are considered the sacred fruit for this katha. Although I don't like bananas myself. But the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha is not just a ritual. It is a journey towards truth, devotion, and divine grace. As we listen to the Katha, let us immerse ourselves fully in its teachings. I pray that this puja brings peace, prosperity, and happiness into the lives of everybody listening. May it guide us on the path of truth and righteousness. The reason I took so long to explain all of this today is to emphasize the importance of performing this Katha today on such an auspicious day. I aim to connect all of you here today with me, and hopefully you will all take part with me in proceeding this Katha. So, let's begin. Panditji, ready? Ready? ठीक है. प्रेम से बोलिए श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की
जय, श्री शालिग्राम भगवान की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय।
वैसे तो 1 बजे का ये टाइम बहुत अच्छे से चल रहा है, अभी 50-55 मिनट है, उसी हिसाब से किया जाएगा पूजा। Chapter 1. In ancient times, in the sacred forest of Naimisharan, a great gathering of sages took place. These 88,000 sages were led by the wise and devout Rishi Shanak, who sought to learn the path of truth and liberation. They humbly approached Sutji in the Naimisharan place, sitting under a banyan tree in meditation. Rishi Shanak asked Sutji, the revered sage, "O sage, in Kalyug, people are plagued by suffering, ignorance, and endless desires. They struggle to find peace and salvation. Is there not a simple yet effective path that can help them overcome their troubles and attain happiness and spiritual growth?" Sutji, pleased with humility, answered, "O great sages, the question you have asked me today is filled with compassion and profound humility. The same question was once asked by Narad Muni, or Muni Narad, ages ago to Lord Vishnu. Narad Muni, after traveling through the Bhulok, saw suffering, ignorance, and endless desires. Some people did not have health, some people had money but did not have the adequate health, and some people had both money and knowledge, still did not have the adequate health, or some people did not have the money and health, and they did not have the adequate knowledge. Lord Vishnu answered, "There is indeed a sacred vrat dedicated to Lord Satyanarayan that can bestow immense blessings, whatever the mind desires. By performing this vrat with faith, one can overcome all difficulties, attain peace, and fulfill their desires. Mostly, this vrat is not limited to anyone. It is for all who approach it with a pure heart and devotion." The sages, led by Rishi Shanak, eager to learn, requested Sutji to explain the procedure and significance of this vrat in detail. Sutji explained that it can be done anytime, anywhere, with the offerings of fruit, flour, and sweets, as we know, panchamrit and churma. Is everybody keeping up okay so far? सबको ठीक से समझ में आ रहा है? बहुत बढ़िया. कौन कौन काशी गया है बनारस में, काशी विश्वनाथ? कोई गया है? आप गए हैं? अभी आप सब लोग जानते हैं क्या हो रहा है भारत में इस टाइम पे? कुंभ मेला. अभी हर 12 साल को होता है. हाँ. और जब 12 साल को कुंभ मेला होता है तो उसको महाकुंभ बोला जाता है. It is known as the महाकुंभ मेला. सॉरी, मैं लैंग्वेज स्विच कर दिया. पर अभी महाकुंभ मेला चल रहा है और काशी बनारस में या कोई महाकुंभ में कौन गया है? कुंभ मेला में यहाँ कौन गया है? कोई गया है? आप गए हैं आंटी कुंभ मेला में? कैसा लगा आपको? बताइए सबको. ठीक है, तो बस थोड़ा सा बताना था कहाँ हो रही है अभी ये 2nd chapter कथा की बनारस में. Chapter 2. Long ago, in the holy city of Kashi in Banaras, there lived a Brahmin who was virtuous and learned in the scriptures. He is the first character of this story, and his name was Shatanand. Shatanand has a profound meaning just to his name. Shat meaning 100%, and Anand meaning happiness or content. Shatanand is always content, and because he is always 100% devoted and surrendered to God. When you have surrendered yourself completely to God, He will always stand by you and take care of you and your life. Shatanand lived life simply and with devotion, with no asks. He was always 100% content, which is the virtue we all strive to achieve with Satya. The key behind devotion is never to expect something when doing so. For example, Shatanand, as I said, 100% content, performed all his pujas without asking for anything. He performed his kathas and pujas out of the devotion and pureness of his heart, which is the key to achieving anything in your life. There are no conditions that you set with God. That is the divine truth. The key is to devote yourself without asks, without any expectations in return. Shatanand was always 100% content. One day, Shatanand sat beneath a tree, deep in thought, and Lord Vishnu, seeing his devoted Brahman, thought, hey, maybe I will give him something today, since he has been so devoted to me all my life. Lord Vishnu appeared before Shatanand in the figure of an old man, in the form of an old man. Seeing how devoted the man was, he thought to give him something. The old man approached Shatanand, radiating divine energy, and he approached the Brahmin and said, "O learned one, I see that you always pray and meditate. Would you like to know a Katha or a puja that can answer all your life's questions?" Shatanand, being the man that he is, of course, replied, "Though I would love to know what I can do." The old man smiled and said, "You should perform the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. The sacred is simple yet powerful by preparing offerings of fruits, flowers, and the sacred prasadam made of wheat flour, ghee, milk, sugar, and honey. Worship Lord Satyanarayan with devotion and share the prasadam with your family and friends. You will see the blessings of the Lord manifest in your life." The Brahmin, filled with hope, thanked the old man and decided to perform the Vrat. Though he had little, he borrowed the ingredients and conducted the puja with a pure heart. One thing I'd like to point out here is that although Shatanand was one of the most learned people in the scriptures in the Hindu Vedas, he was willing to follow the teachings given to him by a man that he had never met before with devotion and worship. The main difference between us and Shatanand is that Shatanand let go of his ego. Oftentimes when we are told something, we let our ego prevail, considering that, hey, I'm probably better than this person. If you were to come up to me, for example, and explain to me something in the Hindu religion, Shatanand instead would listen with an open heart, but an arrogant man would say, "I don't need to listen to you, I know more than you do." That is the key difference between us and Shatanand, is that he let his ego go, except we let our ego prevail. That is one of the main lessons that we learn from the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Though he had never met this old man before, he was willing to follow the teachings of him for worship and devotion. He took into consideration that he may not know all. Once we do the same thing, that we may not know all, that we are not all-knowing, our lives can become much more peaceful and meaningful. Now, back to the Katha itself. Shatanand was in his home conducting the Katha. Just as he was, he took a Sankalp to perform the Katha each Purnima. So every full moon, there would be a Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Just as he was performing the puja, Lakardhara, our second character, entered. A little bit about Lakardhara is that he was a woodcutter who lived by selling his wood and living off the money he received doing so in the market. On that day, he was on the way to the market to sell all the wood that he had worked so hard chopping for his family. On the way to the market, he became riddled with thirst. He passed by a home and saw a puja being conducted inside and thought, this may be the place where I can get some water. Seeing the puja, he sat down in Satyanarayan's home and listened quietly to the puja. Even though he was completely parched, he waited for the puja to end and sat patiently to wait his turn. By doing so, he realized that he actually quite enjoyed listening to the Katha and watching the puja. So when he went to take his prasadam, he asked Satyanand, I truly enjoyed hearing this Katha. May I ask what it was you were doing? Satyanand smiled and responded, of course. We were performing the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Lakardhara's interest was piqued. He asked, what can you gain from doing this puja? Why should I do this? What's the meaning of this? Satyanarayan said, anything your heart desires. Lakardhara, being a poor man who only sells wood for a living, asked, even money, even dhan? Satyanarayan said, of course. Perform the puja with a pure heart with offerings of fruits, sweets, flowers, and panchamrit. He explains in detail to Lakardhara all the details that are needed to perform the puja. And Lakardhara receives his prasad, receives his water, and at that moment takes a sankalp that whatever money he may make today from the market, from his wood selling, he will use all of it towards preparing the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Just then, all of his wood turns from ordinary wood to sandalwood by a miracle, as soon as he took the sankalp. Sandalwood, as you may know, is worth 4 times the original value of the ordinary wood he was selling earlier. So when he went to the market, all of his customers paid 4 times the original amounts. And Lakardhara used all this money to prepare ingredients for the Vrat Katha. We see here that as soon as Lakardhara took his sankalp and devoted himself to Lord Satyanarayan, he received the blessings for it immediately. The main thing to note here is that the sankalp he took was that all the money he would make here today would be going towards the Vrat Katha. He did not keep any for himself, which is what Satyanand does as a person. He never expects anything from God. He never sets a condition with God. He never prays and asks for something in particular. No matter what, he knows that the Lord will answer his prayers, and he will always be 100% content. The key is to never perform a puja or perform anything expecting something from God in return. There are no conditions you can set in that story. Using all this money to prepare for his katha, he performed the Vrat Katha with his family, and his home was blessed with money, happiness, and prosperity. Satyanand began to do this puja every Purnima, as did Lakardhara, which marks the end of the 2nd chapter. The key thing is that this chapter teaches us that the Lord never ignores the prayers of those who approach him with faith and devotion. That marks the end of the 2nd chapter. प्रेम से बोलिए
श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय, श्री शालिग्राम भगवान की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय।
कैसा लग रहा है सबको so far? बढ़िया। कौन से चैप्टर में आए अभी, किसको पता है? तीसरे चैप्टर। तो पहले चैप्टर में हमारे क्या हुआ था पहले चैप्टर में? ऐसे कौन बता सकता है? देखना है कौन सुन रहा था, कौन नहीं सुन रहा था, कौन फोन पे था। कौन बताएगा पहले चैप्टर में क्या हुआ? शतानंद? अच्छा जी, नहीं। पहले चैप्टर में हम लोग देखे थे लैंग्वेज पहले चैप्टर में हम देखे थे कि 88,000 ऋषि, शौनक आदि ऋषि सूत जी से पूछे थे कि क्या कोई पूजा है जो मानव लोक का भूलोक में सारा ठीक कर सकता है। तब बताया गया था कि श्री सत्यनारायण व्रत का था। उससे हम लोग दूसरे चैप्टर में आए जिसमें पहले कैरेक्टर का नाम कौन जानता है? लकड़हारा? नहीं, बहुत बढ़िया। पहले कैरेक्टर का नाम शतानंद। शतानंद का मीनिंग शत और आनंद, 100% आनंद। तो दूसरे कैरेक्टर का नाम तो आप बताए थे अभी, कौन? लकड़हारा, बहुत बढ़िया। लकड़हारा क्या करता था? लकड़ी बेचता था। हाँ ठीक है, तो थोड़ा 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 सुन रहे हैं। इससे तीसरे चैप्टर अब शुरू करूंगा मैं। तो ये तीसरा चैप्टर प्रारंभ होने जा रहा है। Chapter 3. Long ago, there was once a king by the name of Ulkamuk, who was a Jitendriya. Does anybody know what Jitendriya means? किसी को जितेंद्रिय का मतलब जानना है? कोई जानता है? जी, बहुत ये करेक्ट आंसर था। Jitendriya means one who has won over all the indriyas a human could. Because of this, Ulkamuk was a very generous and giving king to all his people. In a sense, his hobby was puja and pat. One day, he was conducting a puja as usual in the Raj Mahal, or in the royal palace. As he was conducting a puja, the Rajjotsi, or the royal advisor, came to him and told him a way he can take part in pujas in an even more important way. The king, being as devoted and selfless as he was eager to find out what he could do. Again, take note that even though the king was the most powerful person in the whole kingdom, he took the advice from his royal advisor without ego. The advisor explained to him that performing a puja in somebody's home or in your own home in a Raj Mahal, you get 100% of the benefits. When you perform the same puja in a mandir or in a sacred place, you receive 1000% of the benefits. However, the Rajjotsi said, when you perform a puja by a riverside, you get 10,000% of the benefits. The royal advisor explained to him and told him in particular to perform the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Of course, the king being who he was, open-minded, Ulkamuk was willing to listen and learn. Also, he may worship in a better way. Ulkamuk, one day, having learned this, by the way, the third character, as I will mention again, set up a tent by the riverside and began the Vrat Katha. As he was doing so by the riverside, our fourth character passed by, who is known as Sadhu Nam Ka Baniya, or a Baniya named Sadhu. Baniya meaning businessman. Sadhu was traveling very afar for business-related activities and for the market. As he was passing by Ulkamuk's tent, so as the fourth character, Sadhu Nam Ka Baniya, passed by the third character's tent, Ulkamuk, his curiosity was piqued by seeing such a grand procession. He asked the king, "O great king, what is it you're doing here? I've never seen anything like it." The king calmly replied, "Hello, I am performing the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha by the riverside." Sadhu, being the man he was, businessman, was in a little bit of need of money currently, and he was having troubles having children at home. So Sadhu, seeing the puja option, he asked Ulkamuk, "What is the puja? What is the puja? What can I gain from doing it?" Ulkamuk replied, simply, "This is the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. By doing so, you may receive whatever it is your mind desires." As I mentioned before, Sadhu, or the Baniya, was having trouble with children at home. He was unable to have children after trying for a long time. So he asked the king, would I be able to bear children because of this? And the king said, "Of course, why not?" The king explained that all he needed was the offerings of fruits, sweets, flowers, and a pure heart, and he will be able to achieve anything his mind desires. As Sadhu ventured deep into the forest, he took a sankalp that whenever he returned home with his wife, they will conduct the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha as soon as they have a child. So Sadhu came back that day into his home, and spoke to his wife, who was named Lilavati. Lilavati and Sadhu took the sankalp that whenever they have a child, they will perform the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha, that was their sankalp. So exactly 9 months later, a beautiful baby girl was born in the home, whose name was Kalavati. Lilavati is the mother, Kalavati is the daughter. Fourth character's name is Satyanarayan. I'm telling you all this so I'm going to quiz you later, just to see if you're listening. But as soon as the baby girl was born, Lilavati, being the generous woman that she is, said, "Our sankalp has been completed. Maybe it is time to perform the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Finally, we've had a child after waiting for so long." Sadhu said, "Oh, it's okay. The baby was just born. Give it a few times. Give it a while, We're going to be really busy raising a newborn child." "So that's okay," Lilavati said. Because of this stall, time went on, and Kalavati, the daughter, began to grow up into a beautiful young woman, eventually being married. Seeing such an important milestone being marked in Kalavati's life, Lilavati said, "Sadhu, it's time. We should conduct the puja now. It's been so long, she's being married now, and we have already stalled this long enough." Sadhu instead said, "Oh, but she was just married. I just had my son-in-law come in. She just had her husband come into the house. Give it a few times, let them settle in at least, Let's wait a little longer." Lilavati said, "Okay, I believe you. I'll trust you." So because of this, Lilavati and Kalavati stayed at home while Sadhu and his son-in-law, or Damaji, Sadhu and Damaji, they went out on business adventures, earning for the household. On one such day, Sadhu and Damaji went out to venture by means of boats. They went out on their boat on the river. As they stopped on the river to quickly wash their face, freshen up, 2 thieves from the Rajmahal nearby, or the royal palace nearby, had robbed the king and were heading towards Damaji and Sadhu, towards their boat, with gold, silver, and generational wealth. The thieves, knowing that they would be caught, the 2 thieves dumped all their stuff, all the wealth, into Sadhu's boat as they were being freshened up, and ran away. At this moment, Sadhu and Damaji, or Sadhu and the son-in-law, are both freshening up in the river. However, Sadhu comes up early and goes to check the boat. As he does, he sees hundreds of gold bars, jewelry, silver, generational wealth, as I said before, and said, "Jab Bhagwan dete hain, to chhappad phad ke dete hain." Unfortunately, there's no English translation of that saying, so I'll continue. Sadhu, seeing the generational wealth, called Damaji over, or the son-in-law over. Come look. We've just been blessed. We must celebrate." As they're deliberating between themselves, where is this? Who gave us this? Where did this come from? How are we going to use this? The guards that were chasing the 2 thieves from the royal palace come running over to the boat. Seeing Sadhu and Damaji holding all this gold that was from the king's palace in their boat, immediately they named them the culprits and take them as prisoners. The two guards take Sadhu and Damaji back to the royal palace and prisoners and present him before the king, who says, "You guys robbed me and you guys are going to split it 50-50? You guys go straight to jail in the dungeons." The guards take Sadhu and Damaji down into the dungeon in the basement, where they are locked up for a very long time. But this leaves us with Lilavati and Kalavati at home, both without husbands. So they live a life of asking for alms to live their life. They live a very simple life, barely making it through every day, struggling to pay for meals, struggling to get food, and struggling to be happy because both of their husbands have gone missing. Kalavati, especially being recently married, suffered the loss of a husband almost immediately. With this, Lilavati stayed at home one day while Kalavati went to go ask for alms, or bhikshatanpe. When she went to receive alms, she passed by a house and saw a procession going on, a puja. So, she quietly sat down in a very specific character's home, in a very specific person's home, whose name was Shatanand. As you may recall from the first chapter, Shatanand had taken the Sankalp to always perform the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha on a full moon night or on Purnimas. Fate being how it was, Kalavati found and just was passing by Shatanand's home and sat down quietly as not to interrupt the proceedings. She sat in the back, very relaxed. She sat down in the home in Shatanand's home, very relaxed, and sat quietly and listened. This piqued her curiosity, and she waited for the puja to be over and quietly got up without saying a word. However, she was supposed to be home hours ago, as the puja may have taken very long. So, late at night, she returns to Lilavati, the mother, and Lilavati is waiting at the doorstep, saying, "Daughter, where were you? I was worried sick. It's been so long." Kalavati calmly responded, saying, "Oh, mother, I was just listening to a puja. I saw one and decided to sit down. I was praying that maybe our husbands may return one day." Lilavati asked, "Oh, good, daughter. But what puja were you listening to? What katha? What was it that took you so long?" Kalavati responded, "I believe it was the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha." At this moment, Lilavati realizes that her and Sadhu had made a promise to do the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha ages ago, before the daughter was even born, before Kalavati was even born. Realizing her mistake, realizing how long it had been, she told Kalavati, "Daughter, we were supposed to perform this puja the day you were born, but we weren't able to. We kept stalling, things came up, Sadhu said no. Maybe that is the reason why we are in such turmoil. Maybe that is the reason why we are poor, unhappy, and our husbands are missing." So, seeing this, Kalavati said, "Okay, Mom, let's do the puja." So, Lilavati and Kalavati the next day both went out for bhikshatan, or to receive alms, and used all the alms that they received to prepare for the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Lilavati, still in turmoil, realized that maybe this was the reason that her husband had gone missing, and maybe this was the one thing that could bring him home. At that moment, they took a sankalp to proceed, or to finish the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha, and as they were doing so, the king in his royal palace, asleep, received a dream from Lord Satyanarayan that if you do not free the two prisoners that you have kept in the dungeon, I will destroy all your wealth and sons. The king, of course, seeing such a divine premonition in his dreams, scared, woke up in the middle of the night and immediately ordered the two guards to release the two prisoners that were kept in the dungeon. The two prisoners, of course, being Sadhu and Damaji, or the son-in-law. To make up for his mistakes, the king released the two and returned them home with 4 times the original amount that they originally had of the gold, silver, and wealth they had received. So with this, Sadhu and Damaji got on their boat with 4 times the original amount and began to go home to their one's wife and one's daughter, so both their wives essentially. Sadhu and Damaji, specifically Sadhu, had been delaying the whole time. It is said that when you're doing a good deed, there is never a good reason to delay it. So if you are doing something for God, do it as soon as possible. There are no reasons to delay yourself. There are no excuses that you can have. And the worst of all that you can do is being lazy. Laziness is one of the worst things you can do when delaying yourself. So, Sadhu was the man who was lazy, and Lilavati was the one who didn't want to be, but had to suffer because of Sadhu's mistakes. So remember, within a family, make sure everybody is doing pure tasks, because your mistakes can affect everyone around you, whether it is friends, family, or even co-workers. tiny things or even greater things such as laziness can ruin someone's life, and it is important that you do things with an open mind, pure heart, and do them as soon as possible. That is the teachings of the third chapter that I had just completed, and we will begin to the fourth. But before we do so, does anybody remember what the second character's name was? I asked you this earlier. दूसरे character का नाम कौन था? दूसरा. तीसरे character का नाम? और कौन थे उनका मुख? जितेंद्र. बहुत बढ़िया. चौथे कैरेक्टर का नाम? साधु नाम का बनिया. और वो क्या करते थे? बनिया तो नाम में ही है जी, बिजनेसमैन थे. बहुत बढ़िया. तो अब सब लोग सुन रहे हैं. पहले में भी थोड़ा नहीं सुन रहे थे, पर अब ठीक से सुन रहे हैं सब लोग. मैं तो ऐसे ही बोल रहा हूँ. पर ये हमारा तीसरा चैप्टर समाप्त हुआ.
प्रेम से बोलिए श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय. श्री शालिग्राम भगवान की जय. श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय.
चौथा चैप्टर शुरू करने से पहले किसी के पास कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हैं स्टोरी के बारे में? कुछ मेरे से मिस्टेक हुई, कुछ गलती हुई जो आपसे पूछना चाहें? कौन सी पूजा? सबसे पहले नारद जी को विष्णु जी ने बताया था एक कथा के बारे में. सबसे पहला कथा कौन किया था? ये मेरे पिताजी आपको बता सकते हैं. मुझे जी, मुझे लगा आप चैप्टर के बारे में पूछ रहे हैं, स्टोरी के बारे में. पहला कथा नैमिषारण्य प्लेस में हुआ था, ये तो आप जानते होंगे. स्टोरी में पहला कथा शतानंद ने किया था. वही नैमिषारण्य प्लेस. हाँ, वही क्वेश्चन था क्या? अच्छा ठीक है. हाँ, तब तो नैमिषारण्य प्लेस में पहले हुआ था. हाँ ठीक है, ये तो मैं जानता था. ठीक है, इससे चौथा चैप्टर शुरू करते हैं अब. एक्चुअली ठीक है. चैप्टर 4. पानी पी लेता हूँ. Chapter 4. Sadhu and the Damaji, Sadhu naam ka baniya, and the son-in-law are returning home from their voyage from the king's palace on their boat. They briefly stop on shore and decide to freshen up again, just as they did in the third chapter. Lord Satyanarayan decided to test Sadhu and Damaji to see if they had made any changes in their lives. Remember, Sadhu being the man he was lazy, he did not do the puja on time, and because of this, Lilavati and Kalavati suffered at home, living away in poverty. So Lord Satyanarayan decided to test them. He took the form of an old man, of an 80-year-old man, and approached them, asking, "Oh businessman, what is it that is in your boat?" Sadhu, sensing distrust, being a very deeply mistrusting person and a lying person, said, "Nothing, it's just bale or bale ke patte. It's just flowers, food, it's just flowers, vegetation, and leaves. Nothing else." Lord Satyanarayan, displeased, said, "Tathastu, whatever you are saying is true. There are only bale and patte in your boat. There are only leaves, flowers, and vegetation in your boat. May whatever you are saying is true." Sadhu and the old man parted ways uneventfully, and Sadhu didn't think much of it until a few moments later when he decided to check the boat while Damaji was still freshening up. Of course, being the man that he was, the first thing that he went to go check was the money, of course. Everybody likes money, especially Sadhu. So he went to go check the money first. Is my gold still here? Is the silver still here? I hope I didn't get robbed. But to his surprise, when he pulled the cloth apart, when he pulled the cloth away from the money, he saw only bale and patte, exactly what he had told the old man. Sadhu, seeing this, seeing that all his money was now turned into fruits, flowers, and vegetation and leaves, passed out on the spot. Hearing a loud thud on the boat, Damaji woke up. Damaji came up from the river, halfway through freshening up, and saw that Sadhu was passed out on the boat's floor. He saw the bale and patte and woke Sadhu up and said, "Ever since I have known you, you have been a lying, deceiving, and cunning man. You are greedy, and you lied to that man, and I saw you do it. Let's go back and apologize to him. Maybe he is the reason why this is happening." Clearly, he is some mystical man. So, he woke Sadhu up, slapped some sense into him, figuratively, and brought him to the old man. Using the Upanishads, they apologized to the old man while he was sitting under a tree meditating, and apologized for his actions. "O mystical man, we apologize for lying to you. Please return all our wealth to us, and we will never do it again, I promise." This was enough for Lord Satyanarayan. All he needed was just for Sadhu to admit what he had done. So he said, "Tathastu," and after that, they parted ways. Sadhu came back to the boat and saw, relievingly, that all his money was back instead of leaves, flowers, and vegetations, because who would want a bunch of leaves instead of money? So, being ecstatic, he told a nearby soldier or nearby messenger, "Go to this address, go to my house, and tell my wife and daughter that their husbands are returning home," while they came home with the river, with the boat. He knew that the messenger would come home first by land, then he would by water, so it would be a surprise for Lilavati and Kalavati while they were returning home. So this brings us to halfway through the 4th chapter, where we are currently. Sadhu Namkabaniya, or Sadhu, and the son-in-law are on their boat now, coming home to Lilavati and Kalavati. The messenger, however, arrives there before he does. And Lilavati and Kalavati are performing another Katha, or another puja, another Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha, praying for their husband's sake and prosperity. Lilavati conducting the puja, and Kalavati sitting in the audience. The messenger comes quietly and whispers into Kalavati's ear, "Your husband is returning home." Kalavati, hearing this news, gets up immediately, halfway through the puja, without taking the prasadam, without sitting through all the puja and hearing the true meaning of the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. Kalavati runs away from the puja and arrives at the shore, waiting for Sadhu and Damaji. But to her surprise, turmoil on the boat, a thunder strikes, and the boat is flipped over. Thunder strikes and the boat was flipped over. Sadhu and Bani are now drowning. Sadhu Namkabani and Damaji are now drowning with all their wealth, and Kalavati has no idea what's going on. Why is this happening? She sits there crying, not knowing why this is happening to her husbands. She was so close to seeing them again, but now something bad must have happened. So a premonition from the sky comes saying, Kalavati, let me rephrase. Kalavati, sitting by the shore, is crying, seeing her husband's almost drowning. And Lilavati, just finishing up the puja, comes over to her saying, "Daughter, where did you go? Why are you here? Why are you crying?" And just then, a premonition from the sky says, "The reason this is happening is because your daughter left without taking the prasadam. She got up halfway through the puja, not learning the true morals, and got up too early. She left without taking the prasad." The premonition goes away. Lilavati sees what is going on with Damaji and Sadhanam Kabaniya drowning with generational amounts of wealth and says, Come on, Kalavati. Let's go back, let's finish the puja, and maybe things will be okay. Lilavati takes Kalavati home. They sit, finish the puja. Kalavati receives her prasad, receives the true meaning of the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha, and returns to the shore to find her husband, both their husbands, perfectly okay with all their wealth, coming home to give them a big hug. Chapter 4 teaches us that you should never leave a puja, you should never leave any proceeding without staying through all of it and receiving your proper prasadam. Kalavati left early, and that is why the boat flipped over in the moment. Lilavati, seeing this, being the smarter one in the whole family, heard the premonition and brought Kalavati home to get her prasad and leave. Chapter 4 teaches us to always sit through whatever it is you're doing, always complete everything to the end task. Essentially, if you have set a goal and you're on your way to reaching that goal, don't be lazy. Go achieve your goals and stay dedicated on your path. Kalavati's goal was to be finishing the puja, but she left early. She was undedicated. She left early and she was undedicated, which is why this happened. So the true moral of chapter 4 is to stay true to your goals and always finish whatever it is you're doing. That is the end of chapter 4. Thank you.
प्रेम से बोलिए श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय, श्री शालिग्राम भगवान की जय, श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय।
ठीक है, तो हम अब कहाँ आए, कौन से चैप्टर में आए हैं? 5वीं और आखिरी चैप्टर में आए हैं। तीसरा चौथा चैप्टर बोला जा सकता है कि लंबे चैप्टर्स हैं और दोनों कनेक्टेड हैं एक दूसरे से, तो इसलिए हमारे चौथा कैरेक्टर जो आए थे, साधु नाम का बनिया, उनकी पत्नी का नाम क्या था? कोई बता सकता है? और बेटी का नाम? बहुत बढ़िया, अब सब लोग ठीक से बहुत अच्छे से सुन रहे हैं, मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई। एक बार फिर से मैं अभी भी देख रहा हूँ लोगों को आते हुए, और मुझे पता नहीं अभी बाहर कितना स्नो है, पर मैं एक बार फिर से सबको धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ कि ऐसे भी कंडीशन में सब लोग आप आए हैं मंदिर मेरी कथा सुनने के लिए, इनके सुभाष शर्मा जी के लिए, इनके जन्मदिन के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आप आए ऐसे भी कंडीशंस में। ये मैं बता नहीं सकता कि मुझे कितना खुशी हुई कि अभी भी लोग आ रहे हैं, और अभी भी मेरे अंदर आप सबका फेथ और कॉन्फिडेंस रहा है कि ये पूजा पूरा बैठ के सुने। मतलब अभी कोई उठ के जा नहीं रहा है, ठीक है, पर ठीक है। 5वां चैप्टर अभी शुरू करते हैं। Chapter 5. Chapter 5 tells the story of a rich and devoted king. But although he was rich and devoted, he was sometimes dismissive of devotion. The powerful king was named Tungadhwaj. Tungadhwaj Naam ke Raja. He is the 5th character of the story, of this Katha. Though righteous, the king was very proud and egoful and sometimes dismissive of devotion. One of his main hobbies were hunting, or shikar khelna, unka main hobby tha. One of his main hobbies was hunting. Passing through his kingdom, he sat in the forest waiting for the perfect game to strike on. But a full day passed, nothing really happened, and the king became very frustrated, arrogant, and upset, essentially, for wasting a whole day's worth just to not get any game. Just then, as he was waiting near his trap, he saw a few kids in the distance pretty much playing dress-up. However, the kids were dressing up as gods and demons, and they were telling their own stories in kathas and pujas, and they had their own prasadam. These kids were very righteous and devotious. So when they saw the king sitting by himself, they thought, hey, he looks pretty sad, let's offer him some of our prasadam. And also, it is always good to give somebody else the prasad for such a big puja that we did. Although just being kids, they were very thoughtful. So they approached King Tungadhwaj sitting under his tree and said, "Oh great king, please accept some of our prasad from the puja that we just had," although they were just playing dress-up. King Tungadhwaj, being arrogant and frustrated, sent the kids away without even talking to them. He was very dismissive of their devotion, and all he cared about in that moment was himself, and hoping that maybe he could go home with something that he had hunted, some game. However, he dismissed the kids, sent them away. The kids went home. I apologize. The kids went back to where they were, very sad that they had just been talked to this way. Tungadhwaj's luck did not turn, unfortunately. and he remained frustrated as he went home. There was no game to be found, no animals in his trap, so he returned home to his Raj Mahal, or his royal palace. He saw his neighbors sitting at the porch of his palace, or his home, essentially. He saw the neighbors sitting there, and Tunggadhwaj was enraged. He asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The neighbor responded, "Who are you? I'm the owner of this property. I live here. I don't know who you are." Although Tunggadhwaj at this moment was enraged and frustrated, he was righteous enough not to not to lash out at his neighbor. There was no reason to get into a fight, and if he would have fought him, he may have killed him. Marunga to mar jayega. Tunggadhwaj thought, why is this happening? I've never seen this man before. Why is he sitting on my property saying he is the owner of it? He doesn't belong here. So Tunggadhwaj went back to the forest and sat under his tree where he often meditated and often played his game. He thought, what is it today that I did that could be causing such a bad thing? What could be causing so much turmoil? Again, he saw the kids in the distance playing dress-up with their puja and thought, maybe it was those kids. I was very dismissive of them and rude to them. Again, Tunggadhwaj at this point was very frustrated, but he was still righteous and calm enough to know to do better. Tunggadhwaj, in a moment of vulnerability, although being all-powerful, returned to the kids playing in the forest and said, "Oh kids, I apologize for being rude to you earlier. Could I please maybe have some of the prasadam you were speaking about?" Kids being kids, very happy that a king had just apologized to them, said, "Of course, king, don't, it's okay." So the kids gave Tunggadhwajam the prasad, and Tunggadhwaj ate the prasad and returned home to see nobody else sitting on his front step. Tunggadhwaj had apologized. When Tunggadhwaj was rude to the kids, somebody else was sitting at his porch saying, "This house is mine." But as soon as Tunggadhwaj returned, admitted his mistakes in a moment of vulnerability, receiving prasadam from the kids, everything was okay. Tunggadhwaj realized this mistake and repented the thought of ever dismissing devotion again. With great humility, his kingdom flourished once more as he realized his mistake. This marks the end of chapter 5, but however, the key thing to learn here is that even though the king was all-powerful, arrogant, and frustrated, he had humility and he surrendered. One of the most key things in any relationship ever is knowing when to know that you're wrong, knowing when to say, "I'm sorry." Nobody is always ever right. Even though you think you are sometimes, nobody is always ever right. Somebody will always tell you something that you don't want to hear. Being open-minded and truly knowing Satya is to know that when to apologize again. Don't lash out on others. Whatever feelings you may be feeling is no reason to outsource them onto other people. So stay calm, always be graceful with people, even if they made a mistake, as the kids were with the king. The king was very dismissive of the kids and yelled at them, but the kids thought maybe he was just having a bad day and moved on. So even, for example, the next time you're at maybe, say, a traffic light and the car in front of you hasn't gone for 5 minutes and is driving without their blinker on, just honk once, maybe twice, but don't yell at them. There's no reason to rage, essentially. There's no reason to be rude to other people, and know when to apologize, know when to surrender, and know when to be vulnerable. This marks the end of the 5th chapter and marks the end of the Shri Satyanarayan Vrat Katha. प्रेम से बोलिए श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय।
श्री शालिग्राम भगवान की जय। श्री लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय।
तो मुझे पता है ये बोला था चैप्टर 5 का एंड है, पर थोड़ा सा और उसके बाद आप फ्री हैं आरती के लिए। 5वां चैप्टर अभी ख़त्म हुआ था और 5वें कैरेक्टर का नाम कौन जानता है? तुंगध्वज। बहुत बढ़िया, तुंगध्वज ही था। पहले कैरेक्टर कौन था? शतानंद, और वो दूसरे जन्म में बने सुदामा। सेकंड कैरेक्टर लकड़हारा, वो बने दूसरे जन्म में निषाद राज। बहुत बढ़िया। तीसरे कैरेक्टर उल्कामुख, वो अगले जन्म में बने राजा दशरथ रामायण से। चौथे कैरेक्टर साधुराम का बनिया, दूसरे जन्म में मनु शत्रुपा। और आखिरी कैरेक्टर राजा तुंगध्वज बने मोर ध्वज। वो होपफुली मैं वो इंग्लिश में नहीं बोला था, पर मे बी वो समझ में आ गया। सो first character Shatanand became Sudama in his second birth. Second character Lakardhara became Nishadraj, Ulkamukh Raja Dashrath, Sadhuram Kabaniya Manu Shatrupa, and Tungadhwaj Mordhwaj. With that officially ends my time. इससे मेरा 5 चैप्टर कंप्लीट हुए। इससे मेरा श्री सत्यनारायण व्रत कथा खत्म हुआ। मैं एक चीज़ बोलना चाहूँगा कि जहाँ पे भी मैं लिखा था उसको The Shri Satyanarayan Katha is a divine narrative filled with lessons of faith, humility, and devotion. By listening to this Katha and performing the Vrat, one can overcome all obstacles and attain peace and prosperity. One concession I'd like to make, however, is at this age of 16, there are many mistakes I could have made, even with a script in front of me that I use for reference here and there. I may have made many mistakes. So if there are any mistakes I have made inadvertently, I apologize. मैं क्या बोला हूँ, इस उम्र में 16 साल की उम्र में, even though मेरे पास मेरा चीट शीट था स्क्रिप्ट, तब भी मेरे बहुत गलती हो सकते हैं इस कथा में। तो अगर मेरे से कोई भी गलती हुई पूजा में, कथा में, मुझे क्षमा करें। ये मेरे आपसी रिक्वेस्ट है। पर ये मेरा आखिरी टाइम था। मैं इससे धन्यवाद। इससे मैं पंडित जी को माइक हाथ में देता हूँ। पंडित जी, आप बताइए।
जी, आप सभी अपना ज़रूर फीडबैक देंगे कि हमारे छोटे पंडित जी मानस संकल्प जी ने कैसी कथा की है। आप सभी बताइए, मानस संकल्प जी कैसा कथा किया है, एक बार ज़रूर बताइए। क्योंकि 16 साल की आयु है और उन्होंने खुद अभी इंग्लिश में बोल के, उसके बाद देखिए इंग्लिश जो बोल रहे थे तो मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, इसलिए मैं कोने में बैठा था। जो हिंदी बोल रहे थे वही समझ में आ रहा था, 2 शब्द। तो अभी उन्होंने बोला कि मेरी आयु अल्प आयु है। अल्प आयु का अर्थ इतना ही है कि मेरी आयु 16 साल है, और 16 साल के अंदर अंदर चीज़ें, हम लोग जब थे तो 16 साल में बचपना था, खेलते थे, कूदते थे। यहाँ 16 साल में बच्चे थोड़े मैच्योर हो जाते हैं। तो इन्होंने ये जब से कथा की बात हुई थी, यहाँ जब अनाउंस हुआ था, तब से मानस संकल्प पंडित जी लग गए थे तैयारियों में कि हमारे से गलती ना हो। और कल भी रात को मैं यहाँ से 8 साढ़े 8 बजे मंदिर से गया और रात को 11 बजे तक हमारे पास बैठे रहे। मेरे से जो डाउट था सारा क्लियर किए, सारी बात किए, और सब क्लियर करने के बाद फिर इन्होंने अपने आप को आज रिप्रेजेंट किया यहाँ। और आप सभी आज उस चीज़ को सुने हैं, जाने हैं इंग्लिश में जो आज कथा हुई है। इस कथा का सारा श्रेय जाता है कथा वक्ता मानस संकल्प जी, और कथा कराने वाले, इस पूजन को कराने वाले, श्री सत्यनारायण व्रत कथा को कराने वाले सुभाष शर्मा जी, उनके परिवार, उनके बच्चे, सभी को जाता है। और साथ साथ आप सभी को जो भी यहाँ उपस्थित है, उनके मित्रगण, परिवार, बच्चे, दोस्त जो भी यहाँ उपस्थित है, आप सभी को आज के दिन की बहुत बहुत बधाई, शुभकामनाएं। अब हम सभी सुभाष शर्मा जी का जन्मदिन उत्सव केक काट के और फिर भगवान की आरती, 2 शब्द अभी मानस जी कुछ बोलेंगे और फिर हम लोग केक काटेंगे।
सॉरी, एक आखिरी चीज़ बोलना है बस कि in my life I have performed many pujas throughout my life with my father, Dr. Sanjay Shastri ji, but it is a special privilege and honor today to be performing a puja in the very mandir I grew up, studied, and lived in my whole life. I give my utmost thanks to my father, Dr. Shastri ji, my mother, Manisha Shastri ji, and most of all, Subhash Sharma ji and your wife, Shakuntala Sharma ji, for inviting me to lead such an important procession in your life. It is a great honor and privilege to be able to celebrate such an accomplished life. Thank you very much.
हम सभी सुभाष शर्मा जी का जन्मोत्सव सेलिब्रेट करते हैं केक काट के, फिर भगवान की आरती और आरती के बाद महाप्रसादम। और आज हमारे पास कुछ डोनेशन आया है मंदिर के लिए सुभाष शर्मा जी की ओर से, इनके परिवार की ओर से $2001 का डोनेशन है। इनको ताली से जोरदार इनका स्वागत किया जाए। फिर से नितिन और रिचा कार्निक की तरफ से $101 का डोनेशन है, इनको भी तालियों से इनका स्वागत किया जाए। दूसरा हमारे पास प्रमोद और वीना गुप्ता का $101 का डोनेशन है, इनका भी तालियों से स्वागत किया जाए। और चौथा डोनेशन है रवि और मनी सांगा जी के ओर से $50 का, इनका भी तालियों से इनका स्वागत किया जाए। पांचवा डोनेशन है दीपक ओम और सोनिया ओम की ओर से $101, इनको भी तालियों से इनका स्वागत किया जाए। आइए हम सभी खड़े होकर सुभाष शर्मा जी का जन्मोत्सव सेलिब्रेट करते हैं, केक काटते हैं और फिर भगवान की आरती और आरती के बाद महाप्रसादम। एक छोटा सा और डोनेशन हमारे पास आया वीरेंद्र और रश्मि दुग्गल की ओर से $51, इनको भी तालियों से इनका स्वागत किया जाए। आइए हम सभी